Welcome to Calendar Girls. James Taylor made popular a song, winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you have to do is call, and I'll be there. Everything inside of me wants to sing that right now, but I will spare you, okay? And anybody who is a member of my family that is here. Too embarrassing. But it's true, winter, spring, summer, or fall, all we have to do is call. God is there with us. And it was interesting when we were talking about this series and meeting with our planning team and coming up with, okay, the first one's going to be winter. And what does winter represent? And we were thinking about the winter of so many women's lives, and that is depression. And everything inside of me said, oh, no, we cannot kick off a series talking about depression. I mean, let's be realistic. We want it to be exciting and fun and flamboyant and woohoo, it's going to be a party. But I really believe that as we unload and unpack this tonight, that it is going to be a celebration and it is going to be a party because we are overcomers in Christ. And as you saw in the video, as these women who so boldly went before a camera and showed extreme vulnerability and told their story, you saw, as I saw, that this winter, this depression knows no age limitations, no racial limitations, and it is something that hits home with women everywhere. Now, all of us have a desire to be happy. I think we would all agree on that. In fact, at the beginning of the year or the end of the year toward the beginning of the year, what do we tell everyone? Happy New Year, right? And then if someone is having a birthday, does anybody have a birthday here in the house today? Anybody we do back here? Anybody else celebrating a birthday at Flavour? We had one last night. Here we do again, all right. Okay, what do we say, ladies, to these two individuals? Happy birthday, right, okay. And then if it's an anniversary, happy anniversary, or we get married, we want to live happily ever after. We all have this desire to be happy. The University of Illinois did a study recently, and I actually got to see a lot of the data that they presented on a PBS documentary called The Emotional Life. It was very fascinating, and I don't know, I think they do run that over and over again, but it was a series of evenings, and I got to see it, like partially on 2 different nights. But it was very interesting this one particular night as they downloaded and talked about and discussed happiness and what makes people happy. Well, they polled a lot of people, and of course, many people were asked the question, are you happy? And some said yes, some said no. They said, do you desire to be happy? All said yes. Then they said, what would make you happy? Well, there were a variety of answers. As you can imagine, the number one answer, money. Money would make me happy. Another answer that was offered was, well, if I had a significant other, a person to share my life with, a relationship, a spouse even. Others said a child. My husband and I, if we had a child, we'd be complete, we'd be happy. I'm married. I love my husband dearly. He is not the secret to my happiness, okay? I have children. They bring great happiness to me on some occasions. On other occasions, they actually steal and rob and take away my happiness that I would have been experiencing. So it was interesting when Ed and I were watching this and we kind of chuckled. And we chuckled because we saw that, this was the pursuit of happiness when it should have been the pursuit of joy. And most people in life get those two things confused. Ironically, the person and those people who said that money would make them happy, in many ways, they were correct. Because money affords you opportunity. And opportunity affords you a change in circumstances. And happiness is based on circumstances. Do you get that? I'm happy when everything's going my way. I love that. My mood is good when everything's going my way and how everything that I've planned out just falls into place. Happiness is based on happenings. And so money does buy you happiness because it affords you an improvement on your circumstances. But it only lasts for so long. I was watching the news just recently and saw a spot on the death of the Johnson heiress. Who could have had more? And yet, somehow along the way, it just wasn't enough. It's not about happiness, ladies. It's about joy. And I have found that throughout my life, in all the different seasons, whether they be winter, spring, summer, or fall, it's all about my joy. And my joy is secure because of Jesus. There's an interesting little acrostic that I heard years and years ago for the word joy. And it's a great acrostic to use in explaining, well, what does joy mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means Jesus. In order for us to have joy, we have to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I'm just telling you that is the only thing that is constant that will bring you complete and total joy. No matter what's going on here in life and down and up and down and up and down and up, it's that consistency of a relationship with Jesus Christ. So joy, it's all about Jesus. It's also all about others because God intended for us to be in community. That's what I love about Flavour. Here we can gather together, we can rub shoulders with other women. We're not perfect. We all don't always look our best. We're not acting our best. We're not at our best, but we can come together as fellow strugglers and go, hey, we're in this together. It's all about others. God intended for us to be in community with one another, in community with Him through Jesus Christ, and in community with others. And then it's about the why. You. Taking care of yourself. When you talk about depression, you have to think about the fact that women are twice as likely to experience depression as men. And it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic level is. It doesn't matter really whether what race you are. Depression is constant throughout them all. The only exception to that is what we call seasonal depression, which interestingly enough, we're talking about calendar girls and seasons, but I'm talking about where you live in a place like the Pacific Northwest where the sun does not shine for like 5 months. People do experience seasonal depression, or in the cold. It's all relative. This winter wonderland kind of thing. I was looking on Facebook and saw a picture of a man I think it was in Canada, and he was probably 6 feet tall. Well, there was like a 7.5-foot snowdrift. So whenever we think we're experiencing winter at its worst, trust me, it's not at its worst. I looked at that picture and was like, thank you for 15 degrees and no snow. Miami last week experienced one of the most amazing cold fronts ever. In fact, Ed and I were given tickets to the Orange Bowl, and it's funny because it's been my dream to go to the Orange Bowl. Not Ed's dream, but my dream. I love college football. And it wasn't even 2 great teams playing. I mean, I'm sorry if you're an Iowa or Georgia Tech fan, but it was a good game, but it wasn't like one of my passion teams. But we went to that. It was the coldest Orange Bowl on record, freezing. And of course, we had no coats, nothing. And we were told that we were going to be in a box. These people that invited us would be in a box, but it was an open air box. So, I was thinking, oh, we'll be fine. In fact, that was the line I gave Ed to make him say, sure, we'll go. But it was so cold. People were freaking out in Miami because of the low temperatures. Well, you know what? It was odd for them. But yet, if we had been down there, we'd be going, this is amazing. It's great. In February, when we have our C3 conference, people are coming into the Dallas-Fort Worth area from the north, and they're wearing their T-shirts as we're bundled up, and they're laughing at us like, wow, this is a warm front. There's so many different variables. The day before our cold front hit before Christmas, it was like 80 degrees, and then it snowed the next day, and we're freezing. It's crazy. There are so many variables in depression. It hits in so many different ways, but over 12 million people in the United States alone will suffer with depression. and twice as many women as men. Now, there's 3 different types of categories for depression. There's clinical depression, which is all about, not being able to do life. It's where you are totally incapacitated pretty much to be able to do life. That's clinical depression. Then there's another depression called dysthymia, and I hope I'm saying that right. I'm not, I'm great with medical terms, but dysthymia. And basically what that is you have a lot of the same symptoms of the clinically depressed, but you're able to function and go through life. Then there's bipolar and manic depressive, where you have extreme behavior, and those are just 3 different types, and there's, again, many variations. And as we saw on the video, it's a deep, dark thing that no one wants to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about. In fact, when I was growing up, pretty much if you were experiencing depression or had any type of problems with that, you would be considered crazy or something's wrong with her. That would be the bad woman, the bad mom. In fact, I give you this perspective. When I was growing up, everyone turned their back toward depression. No one discussed it. It was just something you did not talk about. Now, I'm very thankful. You can turn the television on and see commercials for different types of medications. If it cures you of your depression, great. You might fall off for some other reason because it has so many side effects. I don't know. It seems that they give every kind of warning possible. But it's a good thing that we are finally coming to terms and talking about it. Depression can hurt. It can devastate. And for women, one of the reasons that we struggle with this twice as much as men is because we are wired emotionally. It's always our emotions, hormones and emotions and hormones. One of them will get us. At some point or another, one of those 2 will get us. Now, I am not an emotional person. I'm pretty constant, even. I'm not teary. My sister can watch a television show and just be sobbing, boo-hooing. I remember growing up, Little House on the Prairie would come on, and I'm like, do you have to cry again this week? Basically, it's the same episode of last week, just a little bit different scenario. The tears would just flow. And that's not the way I'm wired. I'm just not that way. Does that mean that I'm not an emotional creature? No. My emotions are just displayed differently. It's in there, but it just manifests itself differently. Well, depression hits home, and it hit me at a very young age. Not me personally, but my home. My mom struggled with depression. I didn't know what that was because nobody talked about it. I could not have told you that that's what she was experiencing. I just knew that there was a dark side of our family's life that none of us wanted to acknowledge and none of us wanted to talk about. And as I remember being a child, I remember thinking, I wonder if other families experience the same thing. Where is the joy? Because let's think about it. John 10:10 is a verse that I've quoted over and over here at Flavour, where Jesus says, I have come that you might have life, but not just to have life, but to have it to the what? Full. Overflowing abundant. That's what God intended. So yes, women are twice as likely to experience depression. We are emotional creatures, and this is something that we're going to have to deal with because of our hormones. Hormones are greatly related to different times of our lives when we experience depression. But God intended for us to have joy. Joy in Him. In fact, there's so many different verses in the Bible. I'll share a few with you if you want to jot these down, because it's good to have a record of what God intends for us, the type of life. One of those is Psalm 118:24. He says, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This day, today, we woke up with breath. That is a good thing. Literally, it's a good thing. And we should rejoice and be glad in it. But there's some times where we might be saying, you know what? I know that this is the day the Lord has made, but I don't have anything inside of me that is rejoicing. And the word rejoice is basically an expression of joy. So that's just one. God intended for us to wake up and say, this is the day that I've given you, and you're going to be glad in it because you're going to do great things. How about Psalm 13:5? But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. Another source for our joy is just the salvation. I say just. It's the overwhelming just salvation. God's given us his son, Jesus Christ, so that we could experience this. That's the source of our joy. John 15:11, I have told you this so that my joy may be in you, Jesus is speaking, and that your joy may be complete. Not partial, not halfway, but full and complete. Jesus is saying, if you're connected to me, in the prior verses to that, he's talking about the relationship of the vine and the branch, and he's saying, if you're connected to me, there is joy, and not just a partial joy, but a complete joy. And then James 1:2-4, which is one of these that we just wish could kind of be pulled out of the scripture. Maybe, I don't know, that's how I feel about it, but James 1:2-4, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. It's not consider it pure joy if you face them, but when you face them. In other words, James, as he wrote this, God had imparted to him that, you know what, we're going to have good times and bad times, high times and low times. Circumstances are going to change, but you count it all joy. Why? This next verse says, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking anything. So when I'm joyful in my trials and tribulations, I know that God is giving me a perseverance that's going to take me to the end of my life. It's going to take me to that point at which I meet him face to face, and it's going to be, well done, well done. Your joy has been overflowing in your life. But again, as I share with you about my family, I wondered, where is that joy? We were a church-going family. My mom was one of the hardest working women, part of the PTA, did any school carnival there was to do. We went to church on the weekends. I remember when the pastor came to our home and knelt with my sister and my mom and I, and the three of us prayed to receive Christ. My dad was already a Christian. He had already made that decision. And my mom and my sister and I prayed and said, Lord Jesus, come into our lives. We want to turn our lives completely and wholeheartedly over to you. And at that point, I remember in my mind thinking, is this going to make things better? Because my mom would have these highs and lows. And I didn't know what the source was. I just knew that there were certain times where she felt so bad about herself, about her purpose, about her meaning, about her place in this world, that she wished that she was not a part of this world. And there were several occasions, and I've just shared this recently, even with my own children, that she said out loud, I'm going to take my own life. I'm going to leave this place, and you will never see me again. And that happened several times. And every time it happened, I remember thinking, do other families go through this? Is this just us? Because on the outside, we looked really good. We had it all together. Very involved in church, very much a part of the community. And yet, at different times, it wasn't always, it just wasn't pretty. And I remember my dad would come into my room, and my sister and I shared a bedroom, and he would tell us, he would pray with us, and then he'd say, Laurie, Lisa, everything's going to be okay. And you know what? I knew that my dad had my best interest at heart, and he had not lied to me on any other occasion, and I trusted him. I don't know whether he knew what he was talking about now looking back on it, but I trusted him, and it would get us through that period of time. Depression is a very tough thing, and it affects all of us in different ways, and it affects people in their families, in their homes, how they function in their work. Thankfully, my mother sought counseling, and this was later in her life. She struggled with the highs and the lows and the highs and the lows and the highs and the lows continually. But she sought help because one time I remember calling her and I was like, "Mother, how you doing?" I'm okay. And at that point I called my sister and I said, "You know what, enough is enough. She's not okay. And my mom knows this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." And she ain't rejoicing. And so my sister, being there in South Carolina, confronted her and said, What is it, Mother?" And so she went into a counselor's office and got the kind of help that she needed. She actually started taking medication, and it was incredible, the difference that happened in her life, the transformation. I mean, I cannot tell you what a difference it made. But the problem was that she felt like that medicine and those counseling visits were a crutch. And surely if she read the Bible more and got closer to God, she could lick this thing by herself. And so she would take herself off the medication. And then things would go back south. Now, we've worked through that, and my mom is a living testimony to God's grace, not only in his presence in her life, but the fact that he has placed others in her life. She's got Jesus, she's got others who are building into her life, pouring into her life, and helping her, my sister and I, to experience what she needs to experience, that community, so that she can get the help she needs. And then she's finally come to terms with the why, the you part, where she says, "You know what? I've got to make sure I'm doing what needs to be done." Well, fast forward to about 4 years ago. Here I am, Lisa, Ed's wife, doing ministry, loving God, loving my family, loving church, being a part of what God is doing here at Fellowship, and as he was expanding it through television and through different campuses, people we were meeting across the country. And I remember it wasn't a quick thing, but just a gradual thing where I thought, you know what? I don't have the love for this like I used to. I saw changes in myself, and I thought, well, maybe you're in a spiritual drought, Lisa. But my quiet time had not stopped. I was still reading God's word. I was still, journaling and praying. I was still active and involved in ministry here at Fellowship. And so I'm like, okay, all the components are there. What's wrong? And then I'm thinking, okay, 44-ish. It's got to be midlife crisis. I'm thinking midlife crisis. I'm thinking this must be a hormonal thing. And so I kind of explore that. All I knew is the things that I had been passionate about, I wasn't passionate about anymore. I loved to work out. I could have cared less about it. I enjoyed ministry. Some days I didn't even want to come to church. That's not good if you're the pastor's wife. I'm so sorry. Honey, I just don't want to go this weekend. I feel like I'm just going to stay home. And Ed's like, "Please, Lisa, you have to come, I need you." But I didn't want to do it. And I can remember Sheila Gerald, who was here for our conference last year. Well, Sheila's just one of these people who just says it like it is. That's why we had the conference called Speak, because she speaks. And really and truly, the conference was based on Sheila speaking into my life. Okay, so Sheila I was talking to her, and of course, I wasn't going to fess up that any of this is going on in my life. I'm not going to tell. I got to make it look like I've got it all together. And so I said, "Well, Sheila, do you ever go through times where it's just, you're at home, your family's just grating on your nerves, because we do life real and then come and minister." And I said, "Do you ever get like that?" And she goes, "You just got to faith your way through it, honey." And I said, "Fake? F-A-K-E, fake?" She goes, "No, faith, F-A-I-T-H. You got to faith your way through it." Now, sometimes you can pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, and I think we should try that. But that's not the cure for depression, because most people who are depressed don't know they have boots on, and not, let alone could they pull themselves up by the bootstraps. So I thought, okay, and I did that. I faithed my way through it. Now, the great principle there is that you don't feel your way into an action. I would never have shown up at church if that were the case. But I acted my way into a feeling. I would come in here, I'd smile, "Hi, how are you doing?" I'm doing good, really good, great to see you. And then I started feeling better because that's how we're wired. Our bodies can start picking up the actions that we're doing. It's weird. We have all these different chemicals like endorphins, and I'm trying to think of all the different, the one that, well, I'm not even gonna try. But anyway, so we have these chemicals in our bodies, and they're reactive to certain things that we do. So I faithed my way through it, and it worked for a while. And then I found that I needed to go and get help because I wasn't going to go down the path that my mom had gone down. I didn't want to do that to my family. Thankfully, Ed and I have the kind of bottom line relationship. He wasn't going to let that happen to my family. And I'm thankful for that. And so I walked into a counselor's office, and then I walked into a doctor's office. I had a physical. I found out that I was extremely, dangerously anemic. But it had to do with my hormones. But he looked at me and he said, Lisa, you are experiencing depression. He knew my family history, and it is a genetic thing. It's a tendency that we have. And I was like, I can't be doing that. I'm too much of a cup half full person. I see things very much cup half full. But I was. And you know what? If it can happen to moi, it can happen to y'all. Okay? I'm just wanting to say to you and to encourage you to know that God is not only present in the spring and the summer and the fall, but if you're experiencing a winter where things are not alive and fresh and full of joy, that you're not alone, that there are others who will come alongside of you and help you. And the number one person is Jesus. He is more than enough. And let me tell you why he's more than enough. Because he's going to give you direction. That's the coolest thing about God. God doesn't just give us Jesus and say, hey, you're saved. He goes, hey, I'm going to give you Jesus. And you're going to have a relationship with the Almighty God. And then I've got the Holy Spirit who's going to help you every single day to guide you and to walk with you. And I'm going to give you my word so that you can have encouragement and you can have direction and purpose. And he also gives us that wisdom to know how to walk into a respected doctor's office or a counselor and to get the kind of help. If you had cancer, you'd go for treatment. If you had diabetes, you'd follow the regimen. If you have depression, then there's hope. There's a regimen for you, just like there was for me. And I'm so thankful now. As I look back over the past few years, God has done more growth and development in my life personally over the past 4 years than I dare say he did over the past 15 years prior to that. Okay, so it was not a fun spot for me, but it was a launching pad. And so often we look at circumstances and go, I'm not really happy. I'm not happy, and the circumstances aren't that great. But it can be a launching pad for God to show up in his biggest and brightest way. As one of the people on the video said, one of the ladies said, she said, you know what? God works when we are weakest. And I'm telling you the things that he's done. Flavour was born out of this weakness. Flavour was born out of this weakness. And now, on any given month, we'll have up to about 1,500 women coming and gathering together. That's unbelievable. But that came because I was low and sought God with a fervor and a drive and a zeal like I'd never sought him before. God can do something big in your life, just like that. When I was a little girl, my dad would come in and say to my sister and I, Laurie, Lisa, everything's going to be okay. Our Heavenly Father looks down upon us and he goes, calls your name and your name and your name and your name and my name. And he goes, no matter what, I am with you, and everything is going to be okay.